Hi everyone, Teddy Baldassarre with teddybaldassarre.com, and in this video we're looking at a new dive watch from Mido with their Ocean Star, now at 39 millimeters. So in this video and on this channel we cover watches available for purchase on our website teddybaldassarre.com as an authorized dealer. So in this video, deep dive on this timepiece, final points of consideration at the end, but also throughout the video if you have further questions or are looking to buy this watch, check out the link in the description down below to the product page. But without further ado, jump into the video, take a closer look at this watch. For regular viewers of the channel, you might be familiar with Mido as a brand, which was started all the way back in 1918 by a watchmaker in Switzerland, with the name Mido being derived from the Spanish phrase yo mido, I measure. Into the roaring 1920s, Mido established itself first as a brand manufacturing elegant watches for women before really hitting its stride as a watch company tied to the explosion of the automotive market. The designs went even so far to be in the shape of radiator grills for brands ranging from Ford to Bugatti, being one of the earliest examples of the crossover between cars and wristwatches. In the 1930s, Mido pressed on, focusing on technical achievement and functionality, which was exemplified by their cork crown sealing system, which later would be known as Aquadura, which was essentially one of the early examples of sealing for water resistance when traditional gaskets were yet to be at a mature state. This would all lead to the creation of the Multifort in 1934, one of the first watches ever made that combined an automatic watch with resistance to magnetism, water, and shocks. The watershed moment for the brand began to set the foundation for what was to come in 1944 with the Ocean Star. Over time, the Ocean Star proved to be a real coming together of decades worth of technological improvements with the coalescence of a single shell, water resistance case. Mido continued to innovate through the 1960s to today, being one of the largest producers of COSC certified watches, delivering robust watches that provide a healthy punch for their price, and now has over a century-year-old history to proudly claim as their own. And as a way to mark that anniversary of 80 years of the Ocean Star, Mido has unveiled a new 39mm case version in 4 color options and a spectacular looking dial for the dollar amount. So breaking down the 4 models in terms of aesthetics, there are 3 models on bracelets, a black and blue variation, a black dial, black bezel option, and 1 champagne dial on a bracelet with a black PVD coated version coming paired with a rubber strap that integrates directly into the case. For today's video, we're going to be focusing predominantly on that blue variation, though many of the visual cues are going to carry over across the entire line. Now what we're getting with some of the basic specs here, looking at the dimensions, we get a 39mm case diameter with a 10.5mm case thickness that measures 45.6mm lug to lug, a distance of length that is quite compact for a dive watch of this diameter. Given the dive watch heritage, you also get a screw down crown and 200 meters of water resistance. In terms of case look and feel, you will absolutely see similarities to something like the Tudor Black Bay 58 in terms of its size. For one, it has the same case diameter and follows the vintage format of a guardless crown, while actually being thinner on the wrist. In totality, the watch wears rather true to size, with the male end link of the bracelet meeting the case, adding to the theoretical length despite shooting straight down. The case is predominantly brushed apart from a clean hairline bevel and the outer edges of the interior links of the bracelet. Speaking of said bracelet, it meets the case at 20mm in width and follows a 3-link design with pin adjusted links terminating at a 4-button clasp. One pair of the buttons is going to operate your unlocking, while the rear smaller buttons extend out some on-the-fly adjustment. With many brands upping their game in this arena, this execution does feel a little bit inferior, serving as more of a flexibility for relief to swelling on these hot days than it is a slick, perfected system. Nevertheless, the bracelet is comfortable and looks the part for the price segment. However, in case you are not a fan, you have the quick release on the back of the bracelet to speed up the job to another strap. Transitioning back to the central case, the bezel has a sufficient grip and contains an aluminum insert that is split equally between the colors of blue and black. Where typical dive watches with dual color schemes will have one color prevalent for the first 15 minutes of elapsed time, this style is more akin to a GMT bezel, even though the actual markers here are very much in a dive time style. Keeping in line with the design inspiration, or at least what this watch is somewhat evocative of, one cannot help but see some similarities between, say, a Rolex GMT Master 2 Batman with its bezel. This is most apparent in the bezel coloration, but where the Batman effect mostly ends at the bezel, elsewhere this Mido Ocean Star is only getting started, which takes to the star of the show, the dial. Considering the $1,100 price point, you're getting a whole lot of detail here. So Mido calls this a blue gradient dial, but this is a tremendous understatement when you see this watch in the metal. You have these vertically casting waves that show off this realistic looking rippling that brings forth a real sense of depth and texture that belies the price and feels like a dial of a watch far more expensive. It fades effortlessly from black to blue, and the real magic is the way in which the applied numerals are set into the dial and the way that they seamlessly are incorporated into the broader identity. The 12, 6, and 9 numerals are triangular, whereas the other markers are round, and the 3 o'clock date window with its white disc takes over the position for the 3 o'clock marker. When it comes to dial text, this one is very balanced with 2 lines at the top and then 2 lines at the bottom. And to top off the time-telling duties are the baton-style hour and minute hands with stick seconds hands with that lollipop indicator. All the hands and markers on the dial contain superluminova, which shines okay in practice, yet is not exceptional. Turning the watch over reveals another vestige of vintage-inspired design by way of a closed case back with the starfish emblem. For those of you not familiar, Mido is a brand that falls underneath the umbrella of the Swatch Group, offering them access to a variety of in-house specialties across the group's resources. Which brings us to the caliber on the inside of this Mido, the Caliber 72. This movement is actually a less frequented choice from the brand and differs in a couple of areas from other movements that they often utilize. For one, this movement uses an ETA base known as the A31.111, offering up 72 hours of power reserve, less than some other Mido calibers, but this is a result of the movement operating at 3.5 Hertz or 25,200 vibrations per hour compared to 80 hours from their 3 Hertz caliber. The 72 hours is still weekend proof, and its extra beat per second registers a slightly smoother sweep in the process. From here, the movement delivers on familiar points one has come to expect from the brand over the years, with its use of a Nivicron balance spring, a proprietary titanium-based alloy created by the Swatch Group that provides a range of benefits, including alleviating the adverse effects of magnetic fields, further enhancing the caliber's shock resistance, and being able to withstand temperature changes, not impacting the balance negatively in its oscillation, and therefore timekeeping. In terms of just some general breakdown of the movement, again, 3.5 Hertz, 25,200 vibrations per hour, and it does feature hacking and hand winding. Hacking stopping the seconds when you pull the crown to the farthest position. But now at the end here, let's talk a little bit more about this Mido Ocean Star 39, some of the cons, some of the pros, and who is this watch generally for. So starting with some of the drawbacks of this design, one that I'm going to mention is this being a dive watch. The lume is just okay, it's adequate, but it's not going to be class leading. Some of this is a byproduct of not the actual illumination itself, but the amount of real estate that that lume is going to occupy on the dial. The markers are rather small, and that is going to detract from its legibility in nighttime or darker conditions. The next point I'll bring up is just the bezel and its action. I do think it's still a solid bezel with how it's being presented, going more for this vintage inspired look and feel. But in terms of its rotation, I think it's not as snappy and responsive as some other divers that you're going to find in that next tier above. And one other final point is I prefer to have this than nothing at all, but I think there will be those now that we're seeing some more on-the-fly adjustment systems on the market. This on-the-fly system is not going to feel as well put together and polished off as some others out there. It's more of a relief on those days where you're really maybe swelling up and just want to have a short moment where you can extend out the clasp rather than really having this mighty on-the-fly adjustment at your disposal. But then we shift to some of the pros here and why I think this watch is one that probably needs to be considered. And I think the first thing I'll mention here is looking at a Swiss-made dive watch for around $1,000. You're going to struggle to find something that is more complete than this. Yes, you have Japan dominating in this sub $500 category, but as you get into this next tier, like what can you have available to you for $1,000? There's a short list of brands that are going to be ones to consider, and on that short list, it is going to be Mido. And now you have a case size that I think was one of the missing elements from the offering from the brand. Having something at 39 millimeters while also bringing something new to the table, which is this dial, I think makes this that much more compelling. And speaking of that dial, absolutely beautiful to look at. You have texture, you have color, and yes, we have seen plenty of wave style dials currently, but also in the past, but this one does have its own delivered end result that allows it to separate from the rest with its texture and also pattern. Finishing across the board from this dial to the case, I would say it is going to help set a standard for a dive watch for $1,000. And just in general with Mido, it's one of these sleeper pick brands that for those that don't understand it, are never going to necessarily look in the direction of a brand like this. This is a brand that's for enthusiasts. It's one that delivers great value. It's a brand that's probably underestimated by many collectors out there. And I think along with other watches in this catalog, this is one of these pieces that can be added to the list that is delivering a lot for the dollar amount. But all right, guys, that's all we have for this video. If you did enjoy it, please give it a thumbs up, subscribe, hit the bell icon. Really do appreciate that. Also, this watch is available on TeddyBaldassarre.com. TeddyBaldassarre.com is an authorized dealer for over 30 brands, quick and fast fulfillment, dedicated customer support, and a full factory warranty for all the products that we offer. Also, how we're able to fund all of our productions on our main channel as well as here is through selling watches. So if you are in the market for a watch, we'd love to have your business. We know you can buy a watch in a lot of places nowadays, but it allows us to keep doing what we're doing here. We love what we do. But guys, thank you again so much for watching. Be well, and I will see you all very soon.